Okay, let's do this. This tutorial is going to go over your inventory quantities import. This is the import you use right before you go live. So first of all, I'll go to the top left-hand corner of Fishbowl, go to File, Import, or Export. I'm going to show you both because the same spreadsheet has two different names. I'll show you. Go to Import, and in this section, the spreadsheet we're looking at in this video is called Add Inventory. This will add the quantity of a part to a location. Then if we go back to File, Export, you'll see that Add Inventory is no longer there. You have to scroll down till you see Inventory Quantities right here. It's the same format. The easiest way to demonstrate what I want to show you is to export the information that's already in Fishbowl. So let's do that. I'll just browse and throw it on my desktop. And I love this new feature where it says, would you like to open the file? Yes. So boom, here it is. Here's some data exported out of Fishbowl, the inventory quantities data. First thing I want to do is turn on the filters and freeze panes so I can see what I'm looking at and work with it easier. So I click right here in this little corner. Right here in this little corner. I'll just click right there. It selects the whole thing. I'll click Data and then select Filter. And look at that, it turns these filters on, and that allows us to sort this easily. Then so I can scroll around, scroll up and down and not lose what I'm doing. I'm going to click in this cell right here and then go to View, Freeze Panes, freeze those panes. Now I can scroll up and down and I don't lose this top bar. I can scroll to the right and the left and I don't use this left-hand section. Okay, so next thing I do is spread out these columns so I can see what I'm looking at. So I just mass select and then hold over one of the column sections and double click. That will automatically stretch out those columns. Notice I have lot tracking, revision level, expiration date, tracking custom. And down here I have serial number and then the different serial numbers. It's always nice to translate what these fields are and look at them inside of Fishbowl. So let me show you where to find these fields inside Fishbowl. I go to Materials, then Parts. I'll just grab a part, any part. I have a part up now. I'll go to the Details tab, and here we go. It says lot number, revision level, expiration date, serial number, and this custom tracking, customer. Fishbowl has custom tracking. You can create multiple tracking values in addition to the standard tracking values they have. To set that up, you go to Tools, Module Options, Tracking, and here you can change the tracking values and the tracking names. So these tracking values here, they need to match perfectly the names of these tracking values. Okay, lot number, revision level. In that format where it says tracking, no space, dash, no space, then the exact name of the tracking value. Notice the serial number tracking is in a different format. When first learning how to prepare this spreadsheet, print out the instructions. Go to File, Import or Export. Remember, it's Add Inventory on the import. It's Inventory Quantities on the export. And here we have instructions on the formatting that all the columns should be in. Notice it says part number, description, location, quantity, unit measure, cost, date, note, and then it says see description, and in here it says tracking, dash, etc. So all the instructions that I'm showing you here match that. Part number, part description. These column headers have to match the names in the instructions perfectly or it won't import correctly. Now let's start with the basics. Notice this first column says part number. We have the part number here, the description, which actually is not a required field, that's just for your benefit. The part number, however, does have to match the part number in Fishbowl perfectly. It can't be the vendor part number, it can't be the SKU, it can't be the UPC or the product number. This part number has to match what's on your part screen in this part list. So before you can import this spreadsheet, you have to have your parts in Fishbowl first. If you don't have your parts in Fishbowl yet, first go to File, Import, and go to Part Product Vendor Pricing. Watch my video on the Part Product Vendor Pricing import and do this import first. Fishbowl does not have a spreadsheet that both creates part numbers and adds quantities. Those are two separate spreadsheets. Okay, then notice there's a location here. In order to add quantity into Fishbowl, Fishbowl needs to know what location it's in. It's a requirement. So notice these examples say middle field dash 1.A.3.B. What is that? Let me show you. Go back to Fishbowl and I'm going to go to Setup, Location. Here you see the location names. This is the 1.A.3. etc. Okay? And then I'm going to go to Setup, Location Group. Here you see I have location groups set up. A location group is a building with an address. A location is a pallet space or a rack space. So in this spreadsheet, the required data format is the location group first, your warehouse, no space, a dash, no space, and then the exact location name as it appears in Fishbowl. If it is not in this format, Fishbowl will give you an error message when you try to import it. Then of course the quantity that resides in that location, the unit of measure of the quantity we're talking about, and then here we go, the cost. This is the value of your inventory. When you first go live with Fishbowl, you'll most likely start out with a new fresh file that has no quantity in it whatsoever. A new fresh file also has no history, which in most cases means it has no cost. But let's touch on this for a second. Go back to Fishbowl, go to Accounting, Accounting Integration, go to Tools, Module Options, and then Costing. And here you see what costing method you're on. This is important to understand when filling out this spreadsheet, to understand how this is going to work. If you're on the average costing method, then the example I'm showing you is going to add a costing layer to the average cost. If you're on FIFO, this will also work. However, if you're on standard costing method, this field right here is irrelevant. If this costing method in your file says standard costing right here on this screen, then you will actually use the Part Product Vendor Pricing spreadsheet to import your standard cost. Different spreadsheet, this column right here. And that cost flows through to this field on the part screen. So know what your costing method is before you do this so you can understand what you need to do. Okay, the date field, Fishbowl will automatically populate, but if you'd like to backdate, you're more ambitious than most people. But yes, you can backdate and put the actual date the inventory first arrived. And that is a good thing to do because Fishbowl does have an aging report that you can run and see how long inventory has been sitting around. If you leave that field blank, Fishbowl will auto-populate it. Usually when first populating inventory into Fishbowl, my clients put something in this note field like first import into Fishbowl. This creates an audit trail. So when you run your part activity report later on, you can see how that inventory got in there. The part activity report will tell you that it was put in there from an import from this spreadsheet, but the notes are always great to add further detail. Now notice this first line does not have any tracking values here. No lot number, no revision level. Let's go to this part number. This is a 1000 MC. On the 1000 MC, in the Details tab, under the Tracking selection, you'll see there are no checkboxes checked. That means that a tracking value is not required on the import of this specific part. Now let's scroll down to see if we have tracking. Here we go. Now we'll start to see that some of these parts have tracking values. Lot numbers, expiration dates. Let's go to that part, 37081. You'll notice on this part, the checkbox next to lot number is checked and the checkbox next to expiration date is checked. If you've checked that box in Fishbowl, this field is required. If you do not put a lot number here, Fishbowl will bark at you. It will say you have to have the tracking value. Now this makes things difficult for the spreadsheet import. So there's two things you can do. One, you can run a VLOOKUP formula against the Part Product Vendor Pricing spreadsheet to flag which parts are tracked by a specific lot number. and then make sure that you assign that lot number to that part, or which parts are tracked by serial numbers, and make sure you have serial numbers for that part. In some cases, I've seen this requirement give a crushing blow to companies trying to go live with Fishbowl. That may or may not be your case. One little trick I learned is you can actually put a lot number or tracking value in this section as long as it's in the format. Obviously that won't work for the date format, you have to put a date. But you can actually put a value here if you're not sure if it's tracked by lot number or not, and you will not get an error message. However, if the tracking value is required and the data is missing, you will get an error message. So it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But the serial numbers, not so much. You have to have those serial numbers. So in some of your cases, it would be good to create a VLOOKUP formula, which would act as a flag to say, this is tracked by this value. If you haven't yet used VLOOKUP formulas, this just might change your life. Insert a new column, and I'll just say serial number question mark. I'll type in equals VLOOKUP. Select the part to look up. Select the table array, which means come over to the part list. I'm going to use the part product vendor pricing spreadsheet. Start with column A that has the part number in. Go all the way over to these columns here. In this column, you can't see it very well, but it says tracks-serial with a true or false value. So that is the column that tells me whether that part is tracked by serial number or not. Then I'll just hit comma, false, meaning returns the logic value false. Whoops, I mean put the column number in there, which in that case was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. Column number 12. So put 12, comma, then false, meaning exact match. Close parentheses. And so it reaches over to that spreadsheet, finds that part number, and then returns the value from column number 12. And then I'm going to hover over this little green square and double click, and that will grab all the values. So notice we see false, false, false. That means these part numbers are not tracked by serial number, and this part number is tracked by a serial number. So this 1K90, 1K98P1, etc. If I come over to this spreadsheet and look it up, basically doing a manual VLOOKUP right now, we'll see if I look up that part number, it brings back that value true. And over here I'm doing it in mass. And then I get NAs right here because those are serial numbers, not part numbers. Hopefully you can see how you can use this to your benefit. Now, one other thing to understand about part numbers tracked by serial numbers is the quantity that you're importing needs to match the number of serial numbers. So if there's a quantity of 100 here, then there needs to be 100 serial numbers here. Notice as I select, this tiny little area up here says 32R by 1C. That's telling me how many cells I'm selecting. So it's counting it for me, and notice it's got 100 cells selected there. Just a nice little tool to help you see how many serial numbers you have there. And then this header needs to match the name of the serial number type tracking, which equates to this, serial space number. Okay? It's a nice little trick to help you identify what's tracked by what is to use the VLOOKUP formula. You can also use that over here as well to pull over true or false values next to lot number or revision level to see what needs to be tracked over there. But of course, Fishbowl won't allow this column to be here when you import it. This is just for your temporary reference. So I'll go ahead and delete that. Now if I import this, Fishbowl will start at the top line. It will look for the part number. It will look for a matching location that matches this format in Fishbowl. It will add a quantity of 4 at this value. It will not replace whatever value you have in the system. It will add to it. That's why the import portion under File Import is called Add Inventory, just to drive that point home that you're adding quantity, meaning you should start with no quantity and add this quantity. If you're thinking about the other applications of these concepts I'm teaching you in this tutorial, such as the physical count import, right? Then use the cycle count adjustment spreadsheet first, the cycle count data, and zero out your inventory before you import this in. Obviously, you need to be careful when doing this. If you're connected to QuickBooks, you'll need to make sure that you first export everything to QuickBooks. Do this after hours. Don't export all these transactions over to QuickBooks. Use the mark as posted feature. And most companies prefer to just do one journal entry to true up the account in QuickBooks to make it match with Fishbowl. So on that note, a nice thing to do before importing this is to temporarily take a quick peek to see what your total value is that you'll be importing. Make yourself a little formula, multiply the cost by the quantity, copy that down, enter in a total to see what value you're actually going to be importing into Fishbowl. Make a note of that and ask yourself if that seems right. If something seems way off, then you may need to go back and fix something before you import it. And once again, that's just for temporary reference. Then we can delete this. Now I'm just in a practice file, so I don't really care what I do with this. So I'm going to go ahead and import this, and effectively what this is going to do is it's going to double my inventory. Now, of course, you would never want to do this, but I just want to demonstrate how this is imported. Okay, you go to File, Import, select Add Inventory. This is your last step. Click Next, Next. Browse to the file. It's on my desktop. It's called Inventory Quantities. Select it, click Next, and Finish. And it will try to import that. And oh, this is a good error message. I didn't think about this. It says duplicate serial number. The characteristic of a serial number is it's unique. So if Fishbowl sees that there's a serial number in there already with that number, it's not going to take it. So I fixed the duplicate serial numbers. Let's try that again. I don't think you would ever have duplicate serial numbers in what you're trying to do, because you shouldn't have any quantities or parts in the system at all. Make sure to save before you import. Make sure you select Fill Series. Fill Series. Back to File, Import. And it's importing. It looks like it's working, and we got a success. That's what we want to see after an import, is that final success. Thanks for joining me today. Be sure to comment below if you have any questions about anything we went over today. Subscribe so you can see playlists, and search this channel for other specific questions you may have in other areas in Fishbowl. If you're not finding the video you're looking for, comment below with a request of which video you'd like.